And if you look at any poem, poetry, or painting before that, brown skin was celebrated. So you'll see a queen depicted in brown color, or you will see a poem about a brown girl, or you'll see a painting about a brown woman. The minute you accept that you are beautiful, that's where your journey starts. It's a very, very powerful positioning that we are taking. We are standing up for something that many of these bigger, larger companies should have done. And they kept on harping on, you'll not get married, you'll not get professional success, you'll not get this. It's insane. Like, we should have stopped it right there.
Today we have with us Mr. Neeraj Biyani, who has 20 years plus experience in the FMCG market in India. He's well known for his for his former brand Paperboats, which he had founded. And it was one of the much loved brands of the beverage industry and the Indian market as well. Today, he's speaking to us as the co-founder of Asaya Skincare. Thank you so much, Neeraj, for joining.
Thank
Um,
you so much. My pleasure.
to begin with, I would like to ask you about Asaya. Asaya, the brand, is catering to unique shades of uh, the melanin skin tone in India, right? Now, it could have been very easy for you to launch a broader skincare range, but I believe you've gotten very niche and you're catering to a very specific target audience. Why is that? Can you explain what was the reason for doing that?
Sure. So first of all, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this is because I feel it's unfair the way we have been treating melanin with skin type. Now, when you say it's a niche, yes, today, if you look at the number of consumers who actually embrace their own skin color, that seems to be on the lower end. But the the data speaks for itself, right? Like 85% of the world population is melanin rich skin type. But if you look at the global R&D dollars spent on formulations for the skin type was less than 14% in 2017. So there is a huge mismatch because I believe that, and it's not only in India, but across the world, um, melanin-rich consumer people of color have been largely ignored. And that's something that we want to change. We are India's first inclusive skincare brand. While it seems niche today because there are only few consumers or a cohort of consumers who embrace their skin and identify themselves as people of color, uh, this number is going to increase significantly as the country progresses, as the consumers are more confident of themselves, as we embrace our own color, as we embrace our own culture. And we've seen this, right? Like this number used to be a very, very small number just about 15 years ago. And now we are saying about 20 odd percent of India has accepted who they are and they're looking for products for their skin type. This number is only going to increase. But even for this 20% of the consumer base that seems small today, there was no inclusive skincare brand, which is kind of unfair if you really ask me, right?
Absolutely. Um, so I would like to know the story behind you, co-founding this company because coming from Paperboat, a skincare brand and Neeraj Biyani seemed a little remote, but I'm sure there's a story to it, right? Can you explain what made you get into Asaya?
Yeah, there's a personal story to it. So there's a personal story to it. I and my wife moved to the US in 2019. And at that time, my wife started to have adult acne, and she is a millennial consumer like me and you. And then she tried to solve for those using OTC products in the US and ended up burning her entire skin, right? And we had to go to a dermatologist. That's when we realized that how different melanin with skin types are and how differentiated approach to skincare one needs to have if you have that kind of a skin, right? And in US, we thought that, okay, fine, people of color at best is about 20-25% of the population. You don't get many products. It's still okay. When we shifted to India and we were looking for, what is the underlying trend in India? Is do we have such products in India? To our shock and surprise, we realized that there were no such products even in India. And in India, people of color like 85% of the population, right? So here, even in this country, we are so obsessed with a non-inclusive approach to beauty, that or the beauty standards are unrealistic, where people are just looking at lighter skin tones and trying to become one of those, which by the way is not possible. So you have a very narrow segment of products and narrow segment of consumers who are asking for this product. Um, that's unfair. And because my wife has gone through this whole because my wife went through this story, I don't want any such consumer to go through the same ordeal that she had. My daughter is a melanin skin type, and we don't want her to be growing in a country which is obsessed by whitening.
Sure. Um, the brand was launched 6 months back, right? How has the response been so far?
So the brand was launched almost 6 months back. End of August, we started launching the brand with two foundational products that we had developed in US. And from December onward, we started to add a few more products. All of these products are very well researched and try to solve common concerns of this skin type. And there it's like a array of products which will be launched in February and March. We are now serving close to about 3,000 plus consumers in a short span of time. We were only there on Amazon, but our Amazon business has increased 10 times in last 4 months. And now we have added our own website. We are very glad that most of the other beauty platforms have started to carry us, and they see the merit in what we are doing. A few of them actually had our products tested, etc., but all of those products were approved. And so from January onwards, you will find us in Myntra, Nykaa, Tata Click, etc. And as we grow both our product as well as the brand franchise, we see a very positive trend from the consumers who are writing in. I get so many messages these days that, I have this kind of skin type and I have this problem. What should I do? Or thank you for launching this. There was this lady in Gujarat who was looking for one of our products since 4 years. Like, she had a similar kind of product in the US. She shifted from US. She was not able to find it. Was a sunscreen. And and she ordered, and she randomly ordered on our website. So I just took the liberty of writing back to her to just start a conversation that why did you order, right? Like, because we are not even doing some sort of an advertisement in Gujarat, and realized that there's the inherent need. She was like, I was looking for this product. I understand my skin is different. I have no qualms about it. I'm very confident about how I look. I just need this problem to be solved, and this is what your product does. And so we are seeing some very positive response on our from our consumers, and I believe that this brand today we are calling it as a niche brand. It won't be a niche brand. It'll start a movement, and I want more and more such brands to be launched because this is something that we are trying to change culturally in this country, and it will require a village to grow. Change the mindset.
It's quite a shift from all the, fair and the glows in the market. So it definitely seems like a breath of fresh air. Okay, so the company has already raised about $500,000. Is that right?
Slightly less than $500,000, but yeah.
Okay, so
And that was a angel and friends and family round. So we have not raised any VC money or fund money, uh, because and this was raised pre-revenue, so this was really uh, at the PPT stage, and the formulations were getting made, etc. Now we are revenue generating company already, so at some point in time we'll just go and raise a little more pre-seed or seed round.
okay, so what are the plans as far as, pushing the brand, marketing it? What are your plans as of now for, and also probably expansion? What are the plans as of, maybe it's too early, but generally, what is your vision board looking like?
Yeah. So, in terms of our marketing, largely acquiring consumers digitally, simply because at this scale, digital allows us to actually acquire customers without much fixed outlet. That's what we want to do. Also today, what we realize is the consumer segment we are targeting, more than 85% of them are shopping beauty products online. So that could be one of a good channel to build our brand franchisee and to talk about the brand. We are doing that both through educational series, which are like, series with a dermatologist, talking about how our skin is different, what needs are different, what kind of products should generally work on our skin, and also through influencer and short reel format snippets on our meta page, on our Instagram page and Facebook page. So those are the two kind of approach we are taking. We are also very heavily investing behind both research as well as taking accreditation. So most of our products are made, say, for Australia, allergy certified, etc. So we're taking both national and international accreditations to build brand franchisee. Ultimately, what happens is when there'll be a small set of consumers who try the brand, and then they will talk about that brand, and if it suits and if it is working, which we are very confident of, they will start writing about us. We already see that trend happening on our Amazon reviews, on our website reviews, which are coming in, and very, very positive reviews that are coming in. We are increasing our presence on all sorts of marketplace as well as on our website. There'll be few offline presence that you will see for the brand, simply to build or talk or be seen at places where our consumers go. So for example, you will see activation at Bangalore airport very soon. That's where our consumers go from, and we're trying such omni-channel approach to build brand franchisee. Our revenue largely is, uh, in fact, totally is from digital channels as of now, and that will continue to be the case for next 2 years. However, after 2 years, once we have significant scale, we will be looking at offline presence as well.
So two, three things, Neeraj, from what you said was about, building an omni-channel sort of a structure. Um, Given that there is a spurt of online marketplaces, e-marketplaces, uh, what do you think should be the mix as far as this omni-channel strategy is concerned?
So for the first 2 years, we would be largely digital, which means the mix would be somewhere around 80 to 85% digital, 10 to 15% offline stroke gifting. And gifting comes in offline because, all of these gifting distributors are offline. But after 2 years, which means 4 years from now, you will see close to about 40% of our business coming from offline.
So offline continues to be a stronghold, and even with online marketplaces, you think?
Yes, and the reason is that consumers are discovering brands both digitally as well as when they are browsing on the shelf, right? And there are certain product categories for which shelf presence makes sense. So, for example, let's say a sunscreen spray that we have launched, it makes sense, and it's kind of, you're on a holiday, you've forgotten, you want to buy it. So an offline presence makes sense. For skincare, maybe not right now because it is easier to showcase your story online, and then serve them online. But as the scale increases, we're talking about 8 to 10,000 outlets by end of fourth year, which should carry our products. These will be largely beauty stores, health and glow kind of stores, Nykaa physical stores, New You kind of stores, and some specific, like, non-chain beauty stores as well.
Okay. Now coming back to the point where you said that, there is culturally we need to kind of shift this mindset of moving away from the fairness and the glow narrative to kind of focusing on what our strengths are, right? How are you planning to communicate this to an audience which is deeply seeped in this Gora culture, the whole we kind of have this looking up to the whole white skin sort of a phenomena. How
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty tricky, right? As yeah.
It is tricky. It is tricky. Communication is a big challenge. But think about it this way, right? So you take any poem, painting, poetry before 1857, right? Before the Goras came to the country. And this is not, by the way, just an Indian phenomenon. This happened to all colonial world, right? Uh, and if you look at any poem, poetry, or painting before that, brown skin was celebrated. So you'll see a queen depicted in brown color, or you will see a poem about a brown girl, or you'll see a painting about a brown woman, right? There was no concept of uh, lighter skin shades are superior, right? But during this whole colonization across the world, because of the the setting, right? Like where that kind of skin came with certain privilege. Emotionally, I think we kind of accepted the fact that we are kind of inferior and they are superior. And the problem is that post independence also we are stuck there. Now, some countries have moved faster than what India has moved. Some countries are still, not as fast as where, or not as where we have reached. But even today in India, there are consumers who have embraced their own how they look, right? And they don't consider themselves as inferior in any way. And that has happened because these consumers have done well, professionally, culturally, probably they traveled abroad, and correlates with higher income also. I mean, if you've traveled abroad, you understand what inclusive beauty is. You've been complimented on your skin type, right? Like people say that, oh, wow, this is such a nice skin to have, right? And so you then kind of feel that, oh, I was living in a mindset where, people around me thought that I'm not as beautiful, but I am beautiful. The minute you accept that you are beautiful, that's where your journey starts. And that has started for a good number of consumers in the country. Close to about 20% of the consumers in the country have that journey has started. The 60-65% of the consumers who are still not there yet, they but they continue to have the problems of melanin skin type, right? So they're looking for product solutions. So they may not come out and say that, I am embracing my skin, but they are still have that problem. So they also become our consumers or second set of consumers for the brand, because if they are facing the same problem and you don't find that kind of solution out in the market, you would typically buy our product, right? Um, Communication is a challenge. It will be an education. I think it's a very, very powerful positioning that we are taking. We are standing up for something that many of these bigger, larger companies should have done. In fact, these larger companies, I would argue, and this is my personal viewpoint, not the company's viewpoint, that they've done more destruction to this country than any other brand would have done ever, right? Like, so, I mean, just imagine, and the brand that I'm talking about, it was aired in 1975. From there, how many millions and millions of consumers in this country, especially women, have felt insecure about themselves, right? And they kept on harping on, you'll not get married, you'll not get professional success, you'll not get this if you. It's insane. Like, we should have stopped it right there. But good that, and just changing the name does not help, right? Like, you'll have to understand that um, the whole positioning was bad. And even if it meant like a lot of profits for them, one should not do it. And so we are taking a very opposite view. We are saying that, we are building it for your skin. And there'll be some consumers who would not want to buy into the positioning, and that's okay with us. But we are not going to, harp on something and kind of push the country into, this whole regressive mode which other brands have done. We don't want to do that. We are not that.
Yeah. Um, okay, I have to ask you about, Paperboat and, your experience in the FMCG sector, which is very rich, right? You've been there for a long time. What are what are the values and the culture, work culture that you get that you've got from that team, from the Paperboat team to Asaya? What are the values that you carry forward from there?
Sure. So, at Paperboat, what I realized is that if you are able to identify a trend which is not at the surface, one level deeper, and build for that trend, then you will have a huge tailwind, right? And so, for example, when we started building for ethnic beverages or, beverages that we have grown up with, like Jaljeera, Panna, etc. We could realize again there was a mega trend that consumers were embracing their own culture, and you don't have to explain to a consumer what a Jaljeera or a Aam Panna is. So it makes the communication much more easier, etc. And when we launched a product, then they really liked both brand as well as the product. That's something that happened through quick iteration, quick experiments that we did. That is one value that we carry forward here as well. Um, we have iterated. So we launched with two products after 1.5 to 2 years of research, and then we iterated on that product, one of those products, as quickly as the second month, and you will see a new avatar of that product coming in next 15 days. So learning quickly from consumer feedback, understanding what they are feeling, facing, is something that I have learned there, and the entire founding team carry that value here. Second is, we've understood that how to, this whole feeling of consumer is always right. Now it's been said many times, but I have seen, and I've worked in many FMCG companies as well, they don't follow it through. That's something that we don't do. We have not done that in Paperboat as well. Like, we were always on lookout of what consumer is feeling, writing, are they resonating with the brand or not? And then we used to change our positioning or change our communication, whatever. We have done that all. We carry that value from Paperboat system, and uh, we are doing the same thing here. Like there was this one copy somewhere which probably consumers didn't identify with as well. This was like 10 days into our launch. We took a complete write-off of that packaging material and came up with a new kind of packaging material. So we understand that, the consumer, see, ultimately consumer brands are products at first level, but emotions at a deeper level, right? And so you have to connect with the consumers emotionally, which we do. Um, Third thing is, we've built and invested in team early on, because what brings a great brand and great product together are great minds that you work with. And so we have invested well ahead of the curve in terms of our research by, doing our research with a very well-accredited lab in US. We have a practicing dermatologist on our R&D board. We have, a couple of copywriters who have done a lot of work or in copywriting, understand this positioning and writing well early on. We have like a whole team of creative people in our office to understand, what kind of packaging. Our packaging also looks very, very differentiated, by the way, right? So we've done all of those things to ensure that, we work with great minds together, and the result of that will be a very, very good product and a very, very clear and sharp positioning.
Okay. Neeraj, you worked your way up, right? In your previous companies, right from a management trainee to kind of going on further to founding a company. I would like to ask you, when you look at the whole startup ecosystem right now, what are your observations from when you were to the newer crop of entrepreneurs who are coming up, and what would your words of wisdom be for them?
Sure. So I have seen this change, and it's a mind-boggling change, I must tell you. When we started off, well, when I started working, there was nothing called as startups, right? Like they didn't used to. I mean, I was so happy when I got a job in a corporate that naukri mein mil gayi and now everything will be good, right? We never thought of starting up. But there were like many incidents in my life where I realized that taking risks early on can have outsized return. I'm not talking only about financial return, right? Like it can have outsized return in the way you shape your country and community. And so even in my
Give an
job, I used
example.
to take like look at what we did with Paperboat, right? Bringing on all of these ethnic beverages back on the map. We will now see, think about the impact, right? We would have, if we would not have done it, the recipes of Jaljeera and Ampanna and Kokam and Sattu and all of those would be extinct in another 50, 100 years, right? But by launching these products, now we've ensured that these recipes are carry forward to our next generation and next generation, next generation, right? And many of such great drinks actually just kind of, because these used to be regional drinks, etc., and never packaged and difficult to make. For example, kanji, right? They're almost becoming extinct. You will only see very few actually families who make kanji at home today, right? Because they've forgotten about that recipe, right? And so that's a huge outsized impact on your society, right? Like you are trying to build and protect your heritage, right? And that's the kind of impact I'm talking about, right? Like so if you take certain risks, I have seen that the reward in terms of outsize impact is much, much higher, and it exists both in corporates as well as when you start something. I have been lucky to take many of those risks early on, uh, and a few of them played out very well, right? Like, uh, right in my first job, I can kind of completely change distribution model in a small town. That worked well, and we changed the complete distribution model in the country, which led me to work on a brand, which was being launched in India, which led me to work closely with a brand which we wanted to tie up with, which was Coke, which led me to get a job at Coke. And then at Coke, I took all sorts of different, like built very different businesses, handled very different businesses, which made me much, much more confident as a person and gave me the understanding, the nuances of a consumer brand, right? Like how a consumer is thinking when they are making that purchase, which again gave me the uh, ability to launch my own company, right? And so but when I started, none of this used to exist, right? Like the ecosystem was not there. Failures were not celebrated enough. Failures were in fact looked down upon, right? And but today that has completely changed. When I talk to many of these founders, both in consumer brands or non-consumer brands, I am so happy to see this change where people are taking risks, do not fear about failures. The whole ecosystem is supporting, right? And when that happens, you will see, uh, you know, uh, successful companies coming out of this for sure. And even if a large portion of companies are not successful, the mindset change that you have, the mindset change of just you are facing a problem, you want to solve it, you go there and solve it yourself. That mindset is very, very important, to progress. And that is what I'm seeing completely. Like it's mind-boggling. It's a huge change. I've been lucky to see both sides, right? Like when it was absolutely not celebrated and nothing, VCs don't used to exist, right? 2003, I'm talking about. To now, in 20 years, a huge change.
I think the earlier crop of entrepreneurs like such as you, I think you can take credit for actually pushing the boundaries in a way to kind of help usher in the present crop to kind of come in. So I guess, but also regarding Paperboat is something that you were pioneers in really kind of making conscious eating and conscious snacking basically a thing which was unheard of before, right? So talking about the FMCG market particularly, I mean, in the last few years, there've been so many changes, and the FMCG market has flowed along with it. There are a few reports coming about how maybe the FMCG market could kind of, moderate a little bit. What is your view? I'm assuming you still look at the sector And what is your
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm extremely gungo about FMCG sector per se, right? Like simply because there are so many consumers who are now becoming middle class and increasing their disposable income. Look at Indian economy, right? 60% of the economy, 60% of our GDP is consumption led. So, and now we are the largest population, we are the largest population in the world. So they are going to demand for products and brands, right? When disposable income, and we have seen this happen across the globe, including China, right? And we are just getting started. Coupled with the fact that we have a lot of these regional nuances to our taste and our culture and what we like, what we dislike, etc., right? Which means that there will be many brands to serve this consumer need because the needs will be slightly different. Every 50 kilometers, you will see our food and drink changes, right? And so you will have those nuances played into consumer brands. For the first time, Indian consumer is also giving a premium for convenience. This was not the case uh, 15 years ago, right? And so when a consumer starts to pay for convenience, I want a drink today here. I am willing to pay 5 rupees extra for this. That's when you will see a lot of consumer brands and models coming out to serve that need. Uh, with that overall consumer disposable income rising, and hence consumption will be much, much better. So I'm not worried about these seasonality. Like, there are reports that say that probably growth will be muted for a quarter or a 2 quarter, but long term, I'm extremely gung-ho about Indian consumer. I'm very, very gung-ho about new age brands because fortunately, they are able to understand the needs much better of the consumer, of the changing consumer. Consumer profile is also changing, right? And they're able to quickly service that need. And whether it is D2C, whether like the mode of servicing that need could be changing, tech enabled, but the core need, because there is a core need and there is this understanding of products and consumer needs, we see brands being successful. So I absolutely have no, I mean, I think FMCG is the growth story of Indian FMCG has just started, and this will continue for quite some time now.
Okay, so I'm happy you brought up tech because my next question is about the interim budget, which proposed setting up an innovation fund to fund innovation fund to kind of finance long-term goals and encourage research and innovation in sunrise domains of especially technology. Since you're also a serial investor, what while this is a great move, what factors need to be kept in mind so that the proposal gets implemented smoothly according to you? If you had your opinion about giving to the government, how can this be implemented? Right.
So first thing is that, my compliments to the government because they're thinking in the right direction, right? Like 50 years ago, they should be thinking about building roads. Today, they're thinking about innovation fund. That's the right way to go because you see, India has leapfrogged in many categories, right? Look at the mobile telephony. We never had a very large penetration of landline. We didn't have the infrastructure, but we quickly leapfrogged from having no phones to having mobile phones everywhere, right? And all of these sunrise sector give us that opportunity to leapfrog and catch up with the developed world. So whether it is solar, whether it is electric car, so their physical infrastructure has lesser role to play. There is some role, of course, and we have to catch up on that too, but has a lesser role to play. Information technology per se, particularly the way we have kind of increased the service sector in last 25, 30 years is only because, we could build that. We had one intelligent minds, English speaking people, and an infrastructure which did not require a physical investment in terms of roads, etc. Right? So it's the right way to think about it. Um, and government has been doing a lot of things to make starting up easier. I think a lot can be still done, uh, but if we are able to solve for that, right? Like if people want to try something, they can start up quickly. If they fail, they can shut it down quickly. That will help. the growth that we are talking about in terms of, the paradigm shift in terms of how developed we are or we could be versus where we are today.
Okay. And one thing also that I'd like to ask you is, how do you differentiate what is the right moment to kind of, you know, uh, what is the moment where you decide, okay, this is my moment of perseverance, but then you have to also let go. The typical dilemma that an entrepreneur typically goes
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
So,
Oh my
because
God.
this is one, this,
That's a
yeah.
brilliant question. I can tell you that every entrepreneur would be thinking about, like, there is no right or wrong answer, but I have found a way that works for myself. It could work for other people as well. I don't know. So before starting, right? Before starting anything, and let's say we are launching a product or a consumer brand, I need to be clear what are my success metric. Many times we are not clear about the success metric, or I was not when I was building, and I realized it through my mistakes. Um, and then we are always in this dilemma whether this is happening or this is, or should we persevere or should we kind of change or pivot. Um, and once you're clear about that success metric can come from peers, success metric can come from markets outside of India. You can look at those markets and see what kind of adoption rates or customer acquisition cost or revenue scale up, etc. For your product category or your industry. But be very clear before starting up, right? Uh, and then be very clear on the time period that you want to go. Now, interestingly, entrepreneurs are always very optimistic. So what I do is whatever time frame I give for myself and the success metric I give for kind of want to reach to, I will continue to try that idea for 2x the time as well, right? So for example, if I say in 6 months I should serve 15,000 customers, 20% of them should be repeating customers, should have XYZ scale in terms of revenue. And let's say I don't hit that, I will give myself 12 months instead of 6 months. But if that is still not happening, then I would question, which means that something is not working. Because if you're given double the time and not change the metric and you're still not able to reach, then there is a core, there's an assumption problem, right? Like you thought about some basic assumption which is not going right. Then question all the assumptions and see which one is not going right as per you, and then pivot. So there could be some assumption pivots, there could be some complete pivot in terms of the market is not right, etc. So that has worked for me. Largely, I've developed this technique while building Paperboat. I've kind of gone through my own ups and downs, and Paperboat was not the first. So, this process of whether to persevere or pivot is something that I developed by failing. And Paperboat was not the first brand that Hector Beverages launched. We've had multiple pivots in our journey, whether it was product, brand, or geographies that we wanted to launch or withdraw from. And what I do myself is just give myself double the time, but have those success metrics early on before starting, right? Like be very clear on that. Then the decision becomes easier. Otherwise, you are always in this, because we are such optimistic people, right? Like you'll see that up next month work करने वाला है और उसके next month work करने वाला है, but that is that will not lead to anywhere unless you are trying to solve the core problem if the assumptions are going wrong. Um,
But this success matrix, does it have a point of pivot also jotted down?
So, I mean, so that comes with experience, right? Like, so for example, if you're saying we have not been able to hit our most of the numbers, whether it is revenue, customer acquisition, repeat percentage, and you'll have to, in different situation, you'll have to come up with different metrics. So, for example, if it is distribution, then we'll talk about, how many outlets am I going to cover, what kind of regular outlet, how many regular outlets are buying from me, etc., etc. But if you're not able to hit that number in double the time, that's the time for pivot. That's the time for pivot. Now, pivot does not always necessarily means that you change everything, right? You will change one. So basically, when I'm saying that's the time for pivot, that's the time when you go and look at all your assumptions. So for example, in this distribution case, you assume that, your sales team will be able to call 40 outlets a day. They'll be able to convert 10 outlets a day. Is it happening, not happening? Is that assumption unfair, or there is something not working, right? So go one level deeper that way.
Okay. 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 Great. Thank you so much, Neeraj, for talking and giving us such valuable insights. I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for a lot of founders out there. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. There's a plane going behind me, so I have to quickly, I'll edit it
sure,
out.
sure.